I want to move on here to just look at a sample camp schedule. I know that for many of you, it's the first time to an English camp, and some of you, it's been a few years since you've been here. So I just want to show you a camp schedule and kind of go through a few of the elements, just so that it's clear and you kind of have a picture of what's going to be happening. So there's actually two different types of camps that we do. There's an away camp where you will travel along with the campers and the Polish church youth group. You'll travel away somewhere to off-site camp facility of some kind, and you'll be there for the entire week, sleeping in cabins with the campers, 24/7 there with the campers. And then there's also a day camp, and a day camp is where the campers will come in the morning and leave in the evening, and then you won't see them. You won't be sleeping in cabins and that type of thing during a day camp with the campers. That being said, the elements of the camp day are pretty much the same. There's just a few more pieces time, like windows of free time in the away camp schedule, and it's a little bit more I don't know, maybe more not so packed and intense, whereas the day camp, you have some time before and after the day to be with your team, to prepare for the next day, but the camp itself is pretty packed and intense. So just to go through like a typical day of English camp. So this is the away camp schedule, and you can see, feel free to take a picture of this or whatever. It would be helpful for you. But the Saturday and Sunday are usually, or Saturday specifically for the away camp is a little bit different because you have to do the registration and kind of get to know each other. But then on Sunday is the first normal day of camp for an away camp. So typically it starts in the morning with a meeting or organizational meeting. So that could be your team along with the Polish team. And you're meeting together to go over the schedule for the day, to pray together, to maybe there's a devotion, that type of thing. Just a time for you as organizers to get together. Then after breakfast, there's the skills section of camp. And so most of you are doing English camp. There are a few fusion, which is the music camps, but during this time this is when you would be in your English classes, for example. So it's like almost 3 hours of English lessons that your teams would lead, usually with a break sometime in the middle for snacks and that type of thing. So 3 hours of English in the morning. Then there's lunch, and then maybe some free time during the away camp. Then there's sports and games, and these games are they're team games. So typically we'll divide the camp into teams, and throughout the whole week, those teams will compete with one another. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a sport like basketball or soccer or football, things like that, but it's more about strategy and moving and team building. So this is more like capture the flag. That's kind of like the typical game, I would say. If you're thinking capture the flag, then you kind of have a picture of what that sports and games time is like. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm seeing that it's pretty blurry for you guys, so sorry about that. Maybe I can try. To clear that up really quick. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, so sports and games, think capture the flag, movement, teams competing against each other, that type of thing. Then there's, after dinner, there's evening program. And the evening program is basically, if you picture your youth group meeting that you have each week, that's probably a pretty good picture of the evening program. So there's going to be, typically it's great to start with a countdown to kind of build the energy up. Then there's camp dance that we provide for you guys. So a dance that the whole camp does together. Then there's some types of icebreakers, 15, 20 minutes of icebreakers. Like a slideshow of the day. So have somebody taking pictures throughout the day and put together a slideshow of the day for the evening program. Then there's worship. And this is, most of the campers, most of the people there are not going to be believers. And so it is worship, and we don't want to shy away from being worshipful. But it also is a little bit different style. It's not going to be necessarily where you put the lights down low, nice, like really slow, reflective songs. Maybe later on in the week we can do some of that. But it is worship songs, and a really important thing about the worship would be to explain during camp what it is. So you can just say things like, this is a time of worship. These songs are actually prayers that we're singing to God, or they're about His character, that we want to praise Him for who He is. And so they're not going to know necessarily what worship is, so we need to kind of explain it and maybe shift a little bit the songs that we do. After worship, then there's a testimony. So your team members can be preparing their testimony and be prepared to share something about what God is doing in their life. And then after the testimony, there's a talk from the Bible. And those talks are written, and they're just in the final stages of being edited. So we'll be sending those to you shortly. And this year they're based on the prodigal son, and then the lost coin and the lost sheep. And so we're really excited for that. And just a few words about the evening talk. And this came up in some of our communication this week. And actually the evening talk is a really important moment where the gospel message is being shared. And so that's actually, we prefer that would be given by either you guys as the leader, or somebody that has biblical teaching experience. So this wouldn't be the time to have the 16-year-old kid from your youth group who's never taught before, to get out of his comfort zone and teach. It would be more, we want this more to be actually taught really well and really clearly, that the gospel message would be clearly proclaimed. And so that's just, if you have any questions about that, just let me know. We can talk more about that. Also part of the evening program is discussion groups. And at most of the camps, you guys actually won't be in discussion groups, and those are done in Polish, led by the Polish team. But you can do during that time, it's usually like a 30-minute window. You can plan that time to kind of regroup with your team and kind of do a check-in. How are you guys doing emotionally, spiritually, physically? You can talk about how are they doing building relationships with campers, and also spend that time praying for the discussion groups. Then after the discussion groups, there's on most nights, there's some type of theme night. So that might be outer space night or cowboy night, that type of thing. You know, people can get creative. I know the Rucks have done Jello night, you know, all types of games with Jello. We've heard of hipster night, you know, so you can kind of have fun with it, but basically it's like a 1 hour themed party. So you can do icebreakers, different dances, get costumes and decorate the room, that type of thing. Just a really fun time together. So kind of one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at the sample day schedule is that everything is designed to foster relationship building. So even, you know, the English classes, you know, your team is in there and it's a small group, less than 10 campers and a few of your team. And the whole point of it is to teach them English, but also you're getting to know each other, you're building relationships, you're having conversations. Even the sports and games time, really, it's really great building that common experience. And then, of course, in between all of these things, when you're walking to the soccer field to before and after sports and games, for example, you know, that's a 10-minute window, 5-minute window when you can have spiritual conversations with campers. So everything is designed to build those relationships and that type of thing. So it's worth, you know, reminding your team about that often throughout the week. So this is the away camp, and you can notice that the lights out is at midnight. So the days are packed, and this is obviously a sample schedule. So, but there's also on the away camp, it's a little bit, the day's a little bit more loose, and there's free time in between different events and that type of thing. If we go now to the day camp, this is just an example, but basically all of the elements are still there. The same elements are there. It's just that at this camp specifically, they started at noon and the campers left at 10 p.m. And so the morning time was spent with a planning meeting together with your team and the Polish team, and then maybe an hour to do the final preparations for the day. You know, get your English class ready, get the sports gear ready, and that type of thing. And then campers came at noon for lunch, and then they left after the theme night at 10 p.m. A lot of the day camps, I would say, they start somewhere around 10 a.m. and end around 8 p.m., something like that. So, so that's just a sample, and it's just kind of a walk through one day of camp. A few other important elements. Usually on Wednesday, there's some type of trip day. And then on Thursday, you can notice on both of these schedules in the evening, instead of a theme night, there's something called the Labyrinth. And that is an experience that we design, and we'll send you the materials. But it's a series of stations that will help the campers process what they've heard in the evening talks throughout the week, and process really the elements of the gospel. And it even at the end of it, there's even a chance to respond. So those are kind of some important elements. Another element I didn't mention, but on the first day of camp, is the registration and English testing. And that's an important time where each camper is going to be needs to be tested with their English. And we provide you with the test, but your English teachers will need to sit down with each camper individually and have a conversation with them, and then divide them into the classes.